Hey everybody, Mark Herman, aka LA Bengal fan on most of the major platforms, and I am joined here by my partner in crime, Sam Schneider, for another episode of Jungle Talk.
Woo
Woo!
day!
All right, here we go. So we are going to preview our upcoming game with the Chicago Bears, our first road game of the year. And I know I've been, if you've been following Twitter and looking at all the social media, the fan base is really excited. I would like to say something before we even get started. We're going to do what we're feeling good about, what we're not feeling good about, but I want everybody to understand two things. First of all, stop overreacting over the power rankings. There's no people act like there's an award we get, like we walk around with week 1 21 instead of 27 power ranking. It's nothing. It means absolutely nothing. I saw one power ranking. We were behind Detroit and Atlanta and teams I thought we should have been past, but who cares? The next one I saw had us in front of those teams and had us at 21 or 20, but guys, it's power rankings. It's
right.
I mean,
it's fine, but it's fine by me the further down we are, frankly.
Yeah. I always say, let's fly under the radar. Let's do all that. And I'm reminded by, Allen Iverson. We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. You're talking about a bunch of analysts speculating as to who, what order to put the teams in. Now, it's nothing. So just stop it.
When you get things like that, like the power rankings and whatnot, all it does is, this is a team, we're the fourth youngest team in the NFL.
Right.
And this is a team that could stand to be playing with a chip on its shoulder. And I say the more chips, the better.
Yeah.
So
listen,
yeah, keep doubting us, keep ranking us too low, keep saying that we're gonna stink. Great, all the better for our guys to just go out there and play angry and play their game.
Well, and you just to put an emphasis on this, there was somebody who correctly reported. They said, back in 2015 we were 8-0, we only got to number 5 on the power rankings. And I was like, so they still were mad. They're still thinking about 6 years ago. Right. They're still pissed about not breaking the top 3.
How dare you?
It means nothing. Listen, the meltdown still happened. I mean, that's where I'm more pissed off about that. I could care less about how high we got in the power rankings, So the other thing is, let's talk about spreads real quick. Okay. And we were just looking at the money line and where it's gone. Let's look at the line opened, I think 3 or 3.5 for depending on what casino you were at.
Yeah, I think most started with 3.
Yeah, and people started crying about the fact that we were underdogs. And I said, shut up and bet it. So I jumped on the plus 135 money line. I teased it, so I got 10. And then I also rounded, I think it was 3.5 on the site at one point, and I rounded it to 4 and got the Bengals plus 4. If a stock is undervalued, you don't go yelling to the SEC that this stock should be 120. It's only 105. You shut up and you go buy the stock at 105. So I will take us as underdogs all year and just tease us and play the money lines all year long.
Right.
And clearly the betting minds we're not alone, because the money line is now down 20 points. It's now down to 115.
Well, yeah. And the same thing is, obviously people out there outside of just Cincinnati were plunking money down on the Bengals because the line opened at 3 on about, if you look at it, let's say 10 sports books now, about 5 of them have the line down to 2.5. 5 of them have it all the way down to 1. Like
right.
we're only 1 point dogs. So anybody that got it at plus 3 is feeling pretty good about themselves right now.
And I bought the extra half point and got it at 4.
Yeah.
I've got a plus.
Take the free chance at money.
Right. Stop crying about this stuff. And just when you see that's the reason why you do your cards Sunday night or early Monday morning when the lines come out, because you think the lines are going to move and you want to jump on something. Yeah, sometimes they move in the other direction, but most of the time, like here, you're going to have because gamblers, they don't care. They're not worried about whether it's Cincinnati. They're not thinking about baggage. They're not thinking about anything. They're thinking about making money. So, and clearly the betting public is right there. So
yeah, take the best opportunities.
Yeah. So those are the two things on social media that went on that kind of I just shook my head. So, but let's go ahead. We're going to do this in the same format we always do on these previews. We're going to talk about things we're not feeling good about, and then things we're feeling good about. And I can start. I'm not feeling good. I feel good that Fields is not the starting quarterback this week, but he's going to be an issue when he comes into the game. So I'm not feeling good about him coming in. If they start using him on red zone packages, things like that, I prefer that he can start playing next week more.
Right.
This week, I'd like to, have him come in for the one series or whatever. I think they're going to have more than one series for us. But that's one of the things I'm not feeling good about.
Well, a lot of it's going to have to do with how Andy's doing too. You know what I mean? This is the second time he's faced us since he left before last season. Last year with Dallas, they whooped us 30-7. Andy was 16 of 23, 185, 2 touchdowns. Obviously he felt comfortable playing against us. It's apples to oranges. You know what I mean? You can't say like, oh, he knows the Bengals. It's not like that. But I think we still see a lot of Bengals fans that talk about how bad Andy was. And man, Andy has a lot of records here. And it's not just from longevity. It's from efficiency, it's scoring touchdowns, such like that. It's just a matter of whether you play up to you play up his game when you're drawing up the game plan. So,
right.
If they come out, throw a bunch of short passes, maybe we won't see as much as Fields. If Dalton is doing just well enough, hopefully we'll of course be running away with it at that point. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to see Fields on the field more than a handful of times in this game, and I don't feel great about that either.
And I would, what I would like for Fields to be starting after this game. So when Pittsburgh plays Chicago and Baltimore plays Chicago, they get to play Fields. We're catching the Bears at a good time, which is something that I have as my feeling good about. But the other things I have is there's the two main scorers they have are Allen Robinson, David Montgomery. So we're going to need to take care of. We're coming off a team that had better wide receivers, I think. So I think our secondary is up to the challenge there, but I'm worried about those guys. We need to do to Montgomery what we did to Cook last week. And if we can do that, that's going to be a good game for us. But I'm concerned about them. And then my biggest concern is their D's pissed. Their D was embarrassed against the Rams. Their secondary looked horrible. It's not that bad. So I have Eddie Jackson on my fantasy team. I didn't start him last week. I'm not starting him this week, but I do follow the Bears defense, and the secondary is usually pretty good. They don't have Kyle Fuller anymore. He's moved on. I think he's on Denver, but he's moved on, which is a nice thing for us not have to face him. But I'm concerned that their defense has that chip on their shoulder and is going to be looking to make a statement this game.
Right. I'll piggyback first on what you said about Allen Robinson and David Montgomery. They were just absolutely blown out by the Rams last week. I mean, it was just no contest. And Montgomery still had 108 yards.
Right.
He had 6.8 yards per carry against one of the best defensive fronts in the National Football League,
right.
And a touchdown. He only had one catch for 10 yards, which is a little surprising considering the situation they were in for most of the game. And Montgomery can catch the ball out of the backfield. So that's part of what I'm not feeling good about. I'm feeling good about us being able to stop him at the line of scrimmage the way we did Dalvin Cook,
right.
And plug up those holes. But I'm a little leery of, swing passes to the outside, the quick dump off throw that gets him into space. And him getting yards in chunks that way. And everybody knows that Andy likes those dump offs. If they're trying to get him to get rid of the ball quickly, then I think that could be a problem.
Yeah.
As far as the defense goes, they are getting a little long in the tooth. So while I agree with you that they're not as bad as what they showed last week, and Matt Stafford had an extremely efficient day. Let's just hope that Joe Burrow has that kind of game as well. I think he only had 6 incompletions and he ended up with 3 touchdowns on the day, and he was throwing the ball down the field. I mean, which is something, the Rams haven't had in a long time. But I'm not feeling good about Khalil Mack just because he's Khalil Mack. Anytime you get somebody like that, if we were playing against the Rams, I'd say I'm not feeling good about Aaron Darnold. I'm not feeling good about Khalil Mack. However, they don't typically move him around as much. So, the majority of our sacks last week came on the interior of the line, particularly in the center guard gaps. And Trey Hopkins had a bad day. He's clearly still shaking the rust off from
Right.
his injury. So I don't expect that to continue. I think he's going to be just fine. The guards are veterans. I think they're going to be just fine. Actually, Spain had a pretty good day. Suafilo is Suafilo. He was pretty average.
Adequate.
Yeah. But so, the good thing is they're not going to like move Khalil Mack, standing over the center or something like that.
Right.
Because they don't do that very much. So let's just hope that Reef and or Jonah Williams, because he does play both ends, that they have the kind of games they had last week, which was, they played really, really, really well.
Right.
So
And their top linebacker is Roquan Smith. He's all
Yeah.
over the place. He's one of their younger
yeah,
guys.
he is. He flies to the
I've got
ball.
him individually. I will be starting him because
Yeah.
he's a 10 tackle guy for me every week. So
Yeah, he flies to the ball. The only last thing, and it's weird. I'm not quite sure how to put this. The only other thing I'm not feeling good about is whether or not we get a little more aggressive with our play calling. We talked in the game wrap on Sunday about how we were very vanilla in like the second and third quarters. We came out a little more aggressively in the first and fourth, but then in the middle of the game we kind of just kind of hemmed and hawed our way out there. And I know Zach said that they were just taking what the defense was giving them, and I get that. Like, that's kind of just part of football. So I'd like to see us be a little more aggressive on play calling, particularly on third down. 3 of 14 on third down is not going to get it done very often.
No.
3 of 14 on third down, it's kind of miraculous that you win the game in that situation. But I'd like to see us open it up based on what the Rams did last week. I'd like to see us test those cornerbacks,
Right.
provided the line holds up, give Joe Burrow some time to throw the ball. But that's it. I guess it's just guarded optimism on the play calling. It's not that I'm not feeling good about it.
Right.
But I'm guarded in my optimism that we'll kind of change that and be a little more aggressive. I certainly hope we will be.
Yeah. So, well, let's move on to the feeling good about. We always like to
Sure.
finish with the good stuff. What I'm feeling good about is I'm feeling good about their 2 offensive linemen that are on their injury report.
Yeah.
Peters left the game. They were thin at O-line to begin with because they lost one of their primary linemen in preseason. So, and then they went ahead and Jason Peters was limited practice both yesterday and today. And we have as of Thursday. So this is the updated as of today injury report. And then Larry Borum didn't play at all. He didn't practice. So, I mean, they're going to be, that Peters didn't look that great. I mean, he may start, but these guys, like I said, they're already limping into this game. So I feel really good about that.
Yeah, and they gave up 3 sacks last week to the Rams. I actually would have expected it to be more. But they gave up 3 sacks and a bunch of pressures. And we know that, I hate to keep going back to Andy over and over and over again. He's mobile and he's got the ability to get away on occasion, but we know this. He's very sackable, if that makes sense.
No,
that's not a real stat or anything. But if you get one arm around him, he's not getting away from you. He's more likely to just tuck the ball and go down.
Right.
So, I'm feeling good about that too. I'm feeling good about the pressure that we can put back there. We put great pressure on Cousins for the majority of the game on Sunday. And I think we can definitely do that to Andy, especially if the offensive line is dinged up.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why there was only 3 sacks in the Ram game is Andy Dalton was averaging, I think I read, getting rid of the ball in under 2 seconds.
Yeah.
At one point, he averaged 1.9 seconds holding the ball, which
is almost unheard of.
He held some for over 2 seconds, maybe 3 seconds, but there were a bunch of plays where he literally got rid of the ball within a second. And that's how you don't have Aaron Donald in your face. That's something that they did. I'm hoping that they try to go for deeper passes, because Andy did not complete a pass over 19 yards in that game. So I'm hoping that they try to stretch the field a little more, thinking, oh, well, it's the Bengals, because all the write-ups I'm reading are keep talking about our team last year. So like
Yeah.
when I'm reading the preview on this, they said, well, we expect to win the Bear, even though the Bengals did this last week, last year they were, and then they start talking about all our stats last year. Last year's old news. I don't
Right.
care what it said last year. So
Yeah.
I
And
think I'm hoping they come in with that mindset, because I think we're going to create one of the things I had that I'm feeling good about is the fact that Dalton's back there. And I think we can cause a lot of problems for Dalton. I think if our own Hendrickson and our own defensive line does what they did to Cousins, we could have a really good game, and we could force Andy to into some serious mistakes.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing is, if he's going to do a lot of that dinking and dunking, that's fine. But one of the things I said I feel good about is I feel good about our linebackers making tackles. I think we had a lot of really good open field tackles with a few just a few miscues throughout the game. But as a Bengals fan, you love to see wrapping guys up on defense, because anybody that sat through the 90s, it's like you still have nightmares about us trying to tackle people and just throwing an arm out there. So I feel good about our linebackers making tackles. I feel good about our linebackers in general. During our game preview for Minnesota, I talked about how I thought Jermaine Pratt was going to have a big year, and he kicked it right off last week by being second on the team in tackles. I think he had 6 solo and 2 assists.
Right.
And Logan Wilson played very, very well, and Gaither had a couple big hits too. So
Right.
I'm feeling really good about our linebackers, because I think if Andy's getting the ball out quickly, it is going to be a little bit of dink and dunk, which means you got to make sure you bring those guys down. And we got to look out for Cole Kmet at tight end. We're going to get him after we had Conklin last week. He wasn't that much of a factor, but 4 catches for 41, a 10-yard average out of the tight end. And Kmet in his game was 5 for 42, an 8.5-yard average. We just need to make sure that when Dalton completes those passes to Montgomery and Kmet, those guys, that we're wrapping them up and bringing them down.
Yeah, and they still have Jimmy Graham. He didn't see a lot of action in the Ram game, but he's still there and he can still be a factor. So they have formidable tight ends, and we typically, had issues with the tight ends over the years. So
of course,
but I have that down too. I'm feeling really good about our D. No, on our injury reports, very clean. Burrow was full practice both days. Brandon Wilson was full practice both days. The only guys that were limited were Bailey, Phillips, and Jackson Carman. And Ricardo Allen obviously is going to miss this game. He didn't practice, and Trey Wayans is still listed and probably not playing. So
yeah, Ricardo actually went on the IR,
right.
And then with the spot that they opened up, they brought up
Irwin.
Yeah, they brought up Irwin, who was fan favorite during the preseason.
Right.
And I don't think we're going to see him on a whole lot of passing downs, but I think I'll be interested to see what kind of contribution he can make on special teams, because he is that kind of just hard-nosed, all-around football player that wants to go out and make a tackle or make a block. And I think he's a good guy to have on the roster.
Yeah, I would rather, and this is personal preference. I don't understand the attraction to Thomas. I don't know why we didn't see Auden Tate last week instead of Thomas. And I would rather see Irwin instead of Thomas. So I don't understand. I know that there's a history with Zach and everything with Thomas, but like I said, I think there's better choices. I'd rather see Auden Tate out there, and I'd rather give Irwin a couple plays. So let's see how that plays out.
Yeah. And it occurred to me too, that when we saw Thomas the most, was actually when Higgins sat out a couple series because he had cramps and he was dinged up.
Right, he was dehydrated.
And on the depth chart, they've got Mike Thomas listed behind Higgins. And I think I mentioned this in the wrap show, that just because when you play Madden you can move any receiver to any spot doesn't mean that in real life that's how it works. Right. You've got a precious few receivers that can do it all and that do know all the routes. But you got to put it in the guy that absolutely knows the routes. So I think that's why we saw Thomas more, but I would love to see a little more cross training in that respect.
Right.
As far as getting guys into different positions.
So you mean life isn't a video game?
No, apparently not. No matter how many times Sports Center or something decides to use, instead of actual footage, they use, Madden.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but just show me a game where this happened. I mean, I know there is one.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, with that, let's get into our predictions. You want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I see this being a lot like last week. I do think that I think the game stays close. I see the Bengals building a lead and holding on to the lead, but always being threatened and almost being matched score for score towards the end. But I think whether it's a late touchdown by Chicago that brings them real close before having to try an onside kick or something like that, or whether it's us having to go down and make a game-winning drive. I think it stays close. I'm going to take the Bengals. This is the same thing I wrote up in my picks this week. I'm taking the Bengals 27-24.
Okay, you got a little higher scoring than me. I concur. I think this is going to be a ground and pound kind of game. I think that both teams are going to try to run the ball. I mean, we're going to force the ball, which I'm not opposed to if we're going to play that kind of a game. I think, like I said, I think our defense does cause problems for Dalton. And if we can do to Montgomery what we did to Cook, I don't see any reason. We could, if there's some turnovers, we could blow this game open, which would be nice as a Bengal fan to actually not have a close game and not have to sweat it. But in typical Bengal fashion, I'm still optimally cautious here.
Right.
And optimistic. I do think we win. I have the two possible scores. I wrote down two. I had 2016 and 23-17, but I do see it being close. And like I said, I think it's going to be more of a ground and pound. I think their defense comes out with a chip on their shoulder, and we see a more formidable defense than the Rams saw. So that's why I'm going with the closer game. But
I do like. I'm with you. The ground and pound is that totally works fine for me because it can open up stuff down the field. And I think lost in the shuffle this week, everybody keeps pointing at the 5 sacks of Joe Burrow. And, obviously you want to protect your quarterback. And if you had your choice to choose, you'd probably choose at this point, coming off injury, to protect your quarterback. But people aren't saying enough about how well that offensive line opened up holes for Joe Mixon on Sunday. That's the reason he is the NFL's leading rusher this week. So I would like to see them push around a defensive line again.
Right. The 3 of the sacks were on blown blocks by Perrine. Okay.
Right.
2 or 3 of them. And then we had the one blown coverage, a blocking assignment where Vigil got through. The Vigil, I think we said this in the recap, that's a correctable thing. That's just somebody missed their assignment. Right. And then in terms of the other ones, we just had our backs. Like I said, we missed Gio on that play. Gio would have never missed those blocks. So 2 or 3 of those sacks don't even happen if Gio's still on our team. We need to have one of the running back needs to step up better, whether it's Mixon or Chris Evans, but maybe that's not in his skill set yet, which is why we didn't see him.
I'm not sure. Yeah. And I agree with that. And, I'll echo what I already said earlier. Trey Hopkins was charged with 2 of those sacks at the center position. He's still kicking off the rust. I don't think we really expected him to be back week 1 to begin with. So the fact that he's even back is impressive on its own. I'm not worried about him. I think that's correctable too. As he gets back to full game speed and plays the way he played last year, those 2 sacks don't happen.
Yeah, well, and you also have Eddie Goldman, who's the nose tackle for the Bears, who was limited practice Wednesday, did not practice today.
Good.
So he was listed on their injury report. So hopefully he's not hopefully, but if he's not 100%, that will help things out. So I don't root for people to play hurt, but obviously we're talking about things we feel good about and don't feel good about. So, all right. Well, we both have the Bengals winning close games this week. We do both I see it a little lower scoring than you, but like I said, it's okay to blow the game out. I'm okay with with not having the nail biter that I had last week. So, we could, now this is a really, really important game because we got Pittsburgh coming up after this. If the Bengals want to show that they're a different team, these are the kind of games you have to win. It's basically that simple. So we had a winnable game week 1. This is a very winnable game week 2. Going in Pittsburgh, we need to go in 2-0. It's that simple.
Yeah, because and they're probably going to be too. They've got Vegas, and sure, the Vegas win felt felt good on Monday Night Football. But the Steelers they've got a better defense than Baltimore, and rumors of their demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Yeah. Well, I think I also think telling you, I think the Bills are overhyped for
Right.
what they are. But it's ironic that the four teams, and Florio wrote about this, that the four teams that had issues getting players on board with the vaccination went 0-4. So,
Right.
you know, when you look at Washington and Minnesota, you know, and Bills being three of those four teams,
Right.
so that had COVID issues. So we'll see how, you know,
And
I don't know,
Dallas.
and Dallas. So, but Dallas made a game of it.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Dallas, I'm not a big fan of moral victories, but that was going into Tampa Bay and playing that close. They could feel good coming home on that plane flight. So
I'll tell you what, when you know, besides the Bengals game, anybody that's watching football this weekend, in my opinion, I think it's going to be a really fun weekend. Vegas has got no less than 5 games where the total is at 50 or more.
right.
And Vegas isn't usually wrong about that kind of stuff.
No.
So I think there's going to be some really, really fun ones. Matter of fact, Mark, if it's okay with you, I'm going to throw the picks article down in the comments. So if anybody wants to read about who I picked, it's myself and 2 other writers. You can feel free to take a look.
Excellent. Throw that in the column there. We'll be back with the recap right after the game. And with that, everybody have a safe rest of your week. We're going to say hoo to everybody. And let's hopefully we're blowing that horn because we're 2-0 on Sunday. Take care, everybody.